In today's Leeds news, Harry Gray wanted on loan, Gnonto's growing interest, Hull want Gelhardt's permanent move, today's rumour mill stories on Troy Parrott and more detail on Jhon Jhon. Morning folks, welcome back to the Leeds View, Monday morning the 17th of November with your Leeds United news. Hope your weekend went well. It went really well from an Irish perspective. We've got some news on an Irish striker as well towards the back end of this video and the rumour mill stuff. And as I always say with the rumour mill stuff, just take that with a pinch of salt. We'll give you the sources, you can make up your own mind on that. Just to give you some updates on this week, it's going to be a little bit more disrupted than normal. We have the Football Content Awards in Leeds on Thursday, so I'll be flying out first thing Thursday morning to go to that. So the news video, I'll try and get something out on Thursday if I can. I've got some time once I get to the hotel. I'll try and get some details out for you then. And then Friday, again, coming back, it'll be likely the afternoon on Friday before the news gets out. But I'll get something out to you. And again, just thanks to everybody who has put us in a position where we can actually be nominated for this award, our first nomination. And we're really looking forward to Thursday night at Ellen Road to see how we get on. But again, massive thank you to everybody who has supported this channel for the last 3 years and helped us to get to this stage. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you for that. But let's crack on. Let's talk about Harry Gray and a loan move. Harry Gray is fresh off the back of his first professional football deal at Leeds United and has been in very strong form for the Leeds United under-21s so far this season. But that looks like where the bulk of his footballing minutes are going to come from this season. Not likely to push his way into the Leeds United first team at this moment in time, especially with reports that Leeds United are interested in bringing another striker to the club come January. But reports over the weekend claim that several clubs are interested in taking Harry Gray on loan once the January transfer window is open. Leeds have a few under-21s out on loan right now, and Andy Cousins, who's covered the under-21s all season, spoke to us on the channel earlier last month, and he said that it's really important right now that some of these players go out and get experience against playing against senior level opponents to help to push on their development. Alan Nixon reported over the weekend that multiple championship clubs are said to be interested in bringing Harry Gray in on loan. The names that have been checked on this are Charlton, Derby, Hull City and Swansea. The named clubs are all said to have watched Gray at the under-21s over the last couple of weeks, but Gray has got plenty of options for a short-term move should Leeds decide to allow that, and that could help push him closer to first team action at Leeds United. Obviously, his brother Archie got that opportunity in the Championship with Leeds when we were down there, but that opportunity hasn't been forthcoming for Harry due to Leeds promotions. But the Championship could be the best place for him to get some experience and get some much needed first team minutes. If he's not going to play in the Premier League, the Leeds could benefit very heavily by letting him go out on loan in January, have a couple of months in the back end of the season playing in the Championship, see where his level is and how far he can come on, and then coming back to the club in the summer could definitely help him be more closer to first team opportunities. On his international front, England and Scotland are both said to be fighting over trying to lock him down to their respected nations. He has said himself to be taking time to consider his options on that decision. Obviously, the Greys have a long history of playing for Scotland. His brother plays for England, and Harry himself has represented England at underage level right now, but there's Scotland are looking at him from a senior level perspective as well. So yeah, lots of interest in Harry from lots of different angles. He's a busy boy right now. He'll have lots of decisions to make over the next couple of months. But yeah, it could be an interesting one for Leeds to let him go out on loan, get a good look at him, see him playing competitive first team football in the Championship. Could be an interesting one. Getting the right club for him will be really, really important. He could go to Hull, join up with Darko JB and Joe Gelhardt, who he knows quite well. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll let you know when we hear more information. Let's move on. Let's talk about Wilfried Gnonto. Our report today says that some sources believe that Wilfried Gnonto could leave Leeds United in January, with interest said to be growing in the attacker. Gnonto hasn't featured in Leeds United's last two squads, despite the fact that he was back in full team training. Daniel Farke, in his last press conference, said that the extra 2-week break for the international football meant that it would be a little mini pre-season for Wilfried Gnonto and allow him to get sharper during that time. Based on that logic, we should see Wilfried Gnonto return to the Leeds United squad for the Aston Villa game at the weekend. A very important game for Leeds and for Daniel Farke. But there has been consistent interest in Gnonto from Seria, where he is viewed and valued very much as a high-level prospect. We should remember, Wilfried Gnonto is still only just 22 years of age. We forget that because of the amount of football that he's played so far. According to the Boot Room Football, they say that there are options for him in Italy, and Gnonto has talked before about wanting to play in Serie A at some point in his career. Of all the clubs that are said to have watched Gnonto over the past season or so, Juventus are said to be the one that are most keen in bringing Willy Gnonto back to Italy. Leeds paid £3.8 million for Willy Gnonto back in 2022 and are expected, if they do sell him, to bring in considerably more than that this time around. And from a PSR perspective, Willy Gnonto would give Leeds an option of a significant PSR profit. However, from a footballing perspective, Willy Gnonto still has a very bright future in the game and could be helping Leeds United in their current situation right now. The report states that Leeds are not actively trying to sell Willy Gnonto, but a bid is expected to come in once the winter window is fully open. Leeds may need incomings, and if that is the case, and they may need money, then Willy Gnonto could be one of the options that Leeds look to sacrifice. Brighton and Everton both held interest in Willy Gnonto over the past 12 months, and if he feels that he's not an important part of Daniel Farke's plans moving forward, then he himself might want to move away from the club in January. Again, you add the context of a World Cup year into that as well, and he might want to try and push himself closer to being part of Italy's World Cup squad, should Italy make it. I'd absolutely, personal perspective here, I'd absolutely be hanging on to Willy Gnonto. The next couple of years in his development could be massively important. We've yet to see what a player Willy Gnonto could develop into. Again, very young age and is well behind his prime years at this point. So there's still lots more to come from Willy Gnonto. He's proven that he can score at this level. He's proven he can get assists at this level at a much younger age. So for me, he's not a player that I would be looking at selling, but I think we'll get a better understanding of the situation around Gnonto over the next couple of matches and see where he fits in Daniel Farke's plans. Let's move on. Let's talk about Joe Gelhardt. Another story, another week. Kyle Newbold in the Yorkshire Evening Post has outlined the Joe Gelhardt situation and Leeds' immediate plan for the young attacker. Gelhardt will have 1 year left on his Leeds United contract once his Hull City loan finishes at the end of this season, and Newbold has confirmed that Leeds United do have a recall option in his loan, but according to the Yorkshire Evening Post, Leeds have no intention of recalling Joe Gelhardt in January, and they see Hull as the best place for him right now. From Hull's perspective, they are said to want to make Joe Gelhardt's loan move a permanent deal come the end of the season once their transfer embargo has been lifted. That is expected to be lifted before the end of the current season. The report states that if Leeds stay up, they will likely heavily invest in the first team, which will make a path back into the side for Joe Gelhardt even more difficult. But if Leeds go down to the Championship, then a player like Joe Gelhardt, specifically in the form he's in right now, could be a player that Leeds United will want to have in their squad. The report goes on to say that his future is not expected to be addressed anytime soon and will likely only be addressed come the end of the current season when Leeds know where they are and where Hull City know where they are. We'll see what happens then, but yeah, more ground to run on this one. Good form so far this season. We'll keep track of him during loan watch. Let's move on. Right, let's get into rumour mill territory, and I will say this first before we get into it. As always, these are rumours until they become permanent deals or become accurate reports. Right now, they're from semi-credible sources. I'll give you the detail and the source. You can decide yourself what you think of it. We'll start off with Troy Parrott, and this one was always likely to pop back up. But what I will say on this is this report came out on Saturday before his heroics for Ireland on Sunday. The Leeds were initially linked with a move for Troy Parrott in the summer, but the Ireland striker stayed in the area division with AZ Alkmaar and has had a very strong start to his season so far. Parrott scored against Portugal for Ireland in midweek before scoring a hat-trick yesterday to help Ireland get to a World Cup qualifying playoff. This season so far for Alkmaar, he's got 6 goals in 7 games. For them last season, he bagged 14 goals with 2 assists in 27 starts. According to reports coming from Voteball News, a Dutch news outlet, they say that Leeds United are keen to bring Parrott to the club in January and they could pay over £10 million to do so. As I say, Leeds were very heavily linked with Parrott during the summer. They decided not to make the move at that point, but he is said to be one of the striking options that Leeds United are said to be considering. According to the Dutch outlet, they go one step further and they say that talks have already begun between Leeds United and Alkmaar, with the striker being labelled as a potential primary target for Leeds for the January window. Parrott would be in the similar mould of Joel Peru, so from a finisher perspective more so than a hold-up striker. So if Leeds United were to bring a player like Parrott in, they would still need to consider changing their style of football. Right now, he's not a Lucas Mecha and he's not a Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He is not going to be a hold-up striker. He's very much a run in behind type of strikers we've seen this week from an Ireland perspective, but you will need to adapt your style if you are to try and get the best out of him, similar to how Leeds probably need to adapt the style now to try and get the best out of Joel Piroe. But as I say, that's the bracket there. Leeds would likely need to bring in an additional creative player as well if they were going to try and bring in a player like Troy Parrott. But we'll keep an eye on that. Leeds are very much said to be very keen on bringing a striker in January, so we'll keep an eye on that situation. Let's move on. Let's talk about Jhon Jhon in a bit more detail on the story that came out at the back end of last week. So as I say, it was linked with Leeds last week, but Graham Bailey has more detail on this story over the course of the weekend. And he says that Leeds are keeping tabs on the attacking midfielder and have discussed internally whether to step up their interest and make a move for the Red Bull Bragantino number 10. Daniel Farke's position at the club is not said to be a factor in this situation, as Leeds say that they are aware of the lack of depth in that position. Fee on this one is pretty wide. It's anything between 9 and 18 million depending on the report that you read, but it appears that at least there seems to be some level of concrete interest from Leeds United in the attacking midfielder. He's definitely on a shortlist. He's definitely a player they are considering moving. The Red Bull element of this is probably where a lot of the story, if it's not true, it's probably where the story comes from. But he is an attacking midfielder. He's a number 10. He can play wide as well. He's a very creative player. He's got goals in him. He'll be an exciting player. He'd be a player that Leeds United could probably do with if they do decide to bring him in. If you're bringing him and Parrott in together, that works, assuming that any of these are even true. But yeah, that's the latest on that one. But the Jhon Jhon one is definitely picking up pace, and there's a lot more noise around that situation. But keep an eye on it over the next couple of weeks as well as we get closer and closer to that January window opening. Leeds are said to be planning to make early moves in the January transfer window, so we'll keep an eye on that situation. Outside of that, folks, that will be it for me today. Back tomorrow morning for more Leeds news. Outside of that, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.